Sure. Are you doing as well as your quarterback of the Florida Gators, Anthony Richardson, has been doing at the Combine?
I don't know if anyone's doing as good as Anthony Richardson's been doing, man. Let's be honest here. He's out here breaking all kinds of records.
You're right. I mean, if only he could have broken a completion percentage of 60% for the past season, right? Couldn't break that record.
Well, look, man, that seems to be your fact of the day, man. I get it. I understand the completion percentage wasn't there. He's a young guy. He also played on an awful Florida team. So we do probably need to consider that a little bit. But in terms of his athleticism, in terms of his, draft stock rising, I don't think there's anyone that's doing a better job. His interview process, his football IQ, he's just winning, man.
Yeah, it's called recency bias, and it's called combine bias. All right, the fans do this. NFL GMs, some of desperate ones will certainly do this. But you know what? Let's look at it this way. He had a terrible week 2 against Kentucky, against Will Levis, and you want to know that he only had a 40% completion percentage, 14 of 35, and 4, he actually had as many touchdowns thrown in that game as you and I combined. 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Do you like that?
Absolutely not, man. But, if you go back and look at his first few weeks, he even openly discussed this. He'd been battling injury the entire season, especially that first half of the season. You'll see it right around week 6, an absolute change, and how he just goes from night and day difference. So I'd like to think that the injury definitely hindered his performance the first few weeks of the season.
I'm glad you said this, and you wouldn't know this, but you set me up just perfectly. All right, 4. Well, try and defend week 7 against Louisiana State, LSU. An awful, only 185 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Terrible showing. Following week against Georgia, 49% completion, and another only 1 touchdown passing. And then in week 11, against a mediocre, subpar Vanderbilt team, barely cracked 60%. Yeah, that was maybe one of his best games, but he still lost to Vanderbilt. Even his best 400-yard passing game, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, couldn't get it done. And 4, this is you. I know you watch this game. You're a big Florida State guy. He only had a 33% completion percentage to end off his season. 198 yards passing. Come on, man. Didn't even hit 200 yards. Only rushed for 41 yards that game. Come on, man. In the rivalry game, in the biggest game of the year, get out of here.
Well, first off, brother, that's the first week of the season, and on top of that, in terms of you discussing,
which game are you referring to?
Sorry. What I'm talking about here, when I'm talking about the first game of the season, I'm talking about. I meant to say the first half of the season. You brought up LSU, and
that was the start of the second half of the season, actually.
All right, so for LSU, you brought up the completion percent. You brought up all that. What you failed to bring up is his 109 rushing yards on the ground, his touchdown, and an 81-yard rush that absolutely showed just a glimpse of the athleticism that he can have. The other thing, too, man, I want to bring this up. You brought up Florida State, and yeah, I guess that's cool. He's dropped 38 points, on that team. He had 3 passing touchdowns and only 9 completions. So what does that tell you about the talent around him? I mean, let's be honest. And he's also completing. If I told you a third of a quarterback's passes in a game were touchdowns, you would call that would be insane. So,
not with only 9 completions. 4. He had 27 attempts, man. How many more darts does this guy need? He can't hit the dartboard.
Yeah, and what's funny is he's still rocking a 124 quarterback, a rating for that game. And in terms of his quarterback rating, 60.5. I'm not, you tell me a guy has 33% completion percentage. I'm assuming an absolute blowout. And by the way, Florida State was ranked 16th in the nation. Another thing you're totally overlooking, that this Florida State team was finished top 10, man.
Yeah, what I'm not overlooking is 14 points he put up in garbage time in the 4th quarter. All right. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You're right. I did forget to leave out the 100 rushing yards he had against LSU. That may have just been, I may have just missed it. I'm kidding. I did see it. I just didn't want to discuss it. I knew you were going to say it.
Look, man, he had damn near 700 rushing yards on the season. That's more than a lot of running backs in college have. The athleticism's there. He's a young guy. I mean, nobody's out here clamoring and saying he's a passing wizard. Everyone's looking at him like he's a prospect, but everyone just realizes his ceiling is so much higher than anybody else's coming out this year, and it's not even close. The guy is showing you this at the combine. And by the way, you said it's recency bias. There's no recency bias here. I've been clamoring about how good he is for months. So I don't want to hear any of this, man. This is not recency bias. This guy is a generational talent. And you are going to be eating your words come NFL season.
I'm actually not saying that you have recency bias. I'm saying every member of the herd that has now followed you and this ridiculous prospect who can't pass for over 61% completion in a season, only giving me 17 passing touchdowns, 9 picks. That's mediocre at best. I mean, that's not even a 2-to-1 touchdown ratio for it. Come on,